siihen tuli joku...
Jumalausimaa.
Joo, se on Plevnan Panimosena klooni. 4,7 volttinen. Semmonen niinku kiva juotelu. Päästäisikö me nyt vaikka aloittelemaan? Welcome to the Aalto-University Student Union meeting 7 out of 2018. It's Thursday, 31st of May. The clock is 17:39. Opening the meeting, moving to item 2, recording members of the council who are unavailable, disqualified, ineligible, resigned, and who are present. And as everybody knows, in a loud voice, state out your name when I state out your name. Say that you're present. We have 34 members of the Representative Council present in the meeting. Remember to notify of absent members well beforehand of the meeting schedule to avoid surprises. And welcome. Question? And from Oikealta, Oskar Kivinen present. Any names not mentioned? Nope. I state that we have a grand total of 37 members of the Representative Council present. Do you have other people who wish to be present or speak? And of course, OBS people, the interpreters and board members have the right of presence, and AYYE staff members if we have any present. Okay, yes, in addition to the Secretary General. Closing item 2, moving on to item 3, recording lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. As you know, the regulations state that we need to send the message of the notification of the meeting 1 week prior, and we have lawfulness and quorum. Closing item 3, moving on to item 4, summoning 2 scrutinizers of the minutes and 2 counters of votes. It's a volunteering minute scrutinizer. We have people who haven't yet done that. Diverse people for scrutinizing and vote counting. And then we need vote counters. Shouldn't be very hard this time. Any other proposals? Nope. Everybody should be okay that you are available. And you can act as seconds for each other. Okay. Secretary General has the names. If nothing, closing item 4 and decreed as the names. Closing item 4, moving on to item 5, confirming the agenda. The agenda has been sent with the meeting notification. There are no other proposals, so we'll confirm the agenda as the work is for the meeting. Closing item 5, moving on to item 6, announcements. Heikkilä from Politiikkarna. I'd like to speak more as my study organization, and I would like to thank the AYYE board for your really nice commendation to the university administration when you talked on behalf of the association facilities. And these facilities, which will be in a very central spot, will have a very big role with associations and the community and kind of the recreation of all the associations in this new campus. And I would like to personally thank Ida Palso, who was there very involved in the work. And it's been really, really empowering to do things with you. Also, weeks like these when we have all kinds of issues on the table along these. So, that's about it. Thank you very much. And inspired by this announcement, I would also like to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for all the teamwork, and I can say that the move to Otaniemi will be very easy now, thanks to all the tireless work. Thank you. I'd also like to announce that after the meeting I should go to the restaurant Fat Lizard for after parties. Everybody join me. I didn't reserve a table because I'd have to eat, but anything else to announce? No. Closing item 6, moving on to item 7, latest news from the central office with Hautamäki presenting. Oh yes, I have my slides there. Nice to see all of you once again. It's really nice that we can get this kind of superheroes and attending the meeting in this very, very nice weather. So thank you. We have new people. These are kind of on the same slides as last time. You know the names. We have Peppi, Mert, Sanni and Riikka. Also we have pictures. So this is what our housing secretary Peppi looks like, our organizational development intern Mert, and you've met him, and then we have the student welfare and development intern Sanni Laiho. They started at the beginning of the month, and we also have a communications trainee Riikka Koskela, and we don't have a picture because she's starting on Monday. And we have the project worker for development of association structures, and the call for applications has closed and we are conducting interviews currently. We should have a peace person in that. Then we had the Kipsari kind of rest in peace party. We threw our farewells, and on Wednesday we kind of closed up the AYYE service point in Arabia, so we have the service point up in Otaniemi from here on out. On the services, we had kind of this Autonappi tryout concluded. We had this kind of communal car, and we decided to close down the testing phase. Today was the last day when Autonappi was in use, and I think that it was really nice that you can do work for kind of firms like this who have the daring to try and fail, and just trying. So I'd like to give applause to the failed Aalto-Nappi experiment. And on the services side, we have services manager Riitu Nuotinen and housing secretary Kirsi have been in the NSBO conference in Reykjavik, so Nordiska Studentbostäder conference. We have lots of other Finns. Let's see what kind of tips and tricks they bring back from Iceland when they return. We're also participating in the ITP Tracks course. It's one of our projects, the Strategy and Experience Design, one of our topics from AYYE, which has to do with our housing services and developing them. So during this summer we will be developing our housing services and how to develop those. And then we also visited China. So we visited Tsinghua University, which is alive and well. A kind of a highlight from China that we had what we remembered as the delegation. As of course, this Tsinghua University has kind of a different looking campus, but we have lots of discussions with them regarding how to apply stuff to Otani as well. And then at the same trip, we visited Korea, and we got a lot of good ideas for student well-being and harassment intervention. And we visited 3 universities, and they had really nicely undertaken this side. And there were phone numbers: call this if you're feeling anxious, call this if you experience harassment. And we've also already discussed with the university management, like, we want this as well. We had Vappu on the community side, and after that the producers and the volunteers have been kind of quiet. Well, we have the annual celebrations, which are coming up on the next slide. But yes, on the event side, we've had a bit kind of a lull after getting Vappu out of the way. And like Ilya said, we also had the annual ball on the 19th. Thank you to all participants and organizers especially. Then the Year of Art has progressed. Currently, the Otaniemen Yö, Night of Otaniemi event is being taking sign-ups. And if you or your friends or your associations have this amazing idea on what kind of a partial sub-event could be organized in Otaniemen Yö, just sign up and search for funding and apply for funding. But this information is on AYY's pages somewhere, web pages. So yes, Aalto-yliopiston.fi, so .fi on the web. Also, we had a deal with Kina Tapiola, which is upcoming in October, a kind of a movie week. Then in advocacy, we gave the AYYE seal of approval, gave to 3 great people. We had the Aalto Space for helping to find study spaces, and then our Vice Principal Eero Ranta for the student representative activity development work he's done. And there you can see Eero Ranta smiling with his seal of approval, giving that the opintoasian sit party. Also, under advocacy, we decided to participate in the Kuuluu Kaikille campaign, which is so that you change your structures based on society, so that actually identifying as gender could be a bureaucratic instead of also a medical issue, which is a lot harder and a lot stricter. Also, to pertain with the theme, we were very visible when we had a few weeks ago, we had the anti-transphobic day, and as you can see, we had the flag there. Also, in advocacy, we had the other event, which was Critical Mass Helsinki, and this event was that everybody started from Otaniemi on their bikes and started cycling, and we wanted to focus on the opportunities in cycling in the metropolitan area, and this can actually see one of our board members there cycling. The webpage project has progressed, and it looks like we will get into the university's platform. You've maybe heard that Aalto University has kind of their own web page update with lots of effort spent and money and funds. And we could actually get from them, we get the coding side free to our new web pages, and then the design would be done with our own work. And to go with this, we also have a cooperation contract with Aalto, so if we're kind of doing this together, we must understand that we need to sign some papers saying by what terms we'll be undertake this thing. Then we have the design recruitment is in the stage where we had the call for applications, the competitive tendering. We got some tenders, and very soon we'll actually find out the office which will be conducting the design. Do we have a risk analysis conducted? Yes, we've thought about this at the office for a lot, and the risks have been mapped out, and with this cooperation contract we'll be probably answering all the challenges. Then, to end, we have the update on the policy paper update. So there we are at the red line. So we kind of done our mapping, and then we got the electronic participation. I think the first draft has been undertaken at the office very, very intensively. So I had this kind of slide here before, and these groups have been introduced into the process. And at this stage the biggest workshops were held for the board and the committees, and also other parties, and we had a lot of good workshops organized. And then on the other part we've kind of done depending on the group, depending on how much they want to participate. So the next step will be the first draft and its publishing, which we'll be doing at the office, doing a lot of work, so we can get it out and about to you at the start of June. Anything else you want to ask about? I'd like to thank the board that finally we've got this actual progress with hearing them from the member base and getting their opinions. And also thank you, and also the thanks can also be handed out to your representative council members who've advocated this process. Thank you. If any other comments, we'll propose to decide, and the proposal was that the representative council decide to place on record the news from the central office, closing item 7 and moving on to item 8, status update on the student center project.
Hello everyone again. We have some news from the student center, as we've had before. Move on the next slide. Quickly. Beginning, Tapsa told about that we visited China, and first week a smaller group, and went to Korea, benchmarked the campuses there. And we visited 4 different campuses at 3 different universities, which you can see there, and one had 2 different campuses. That's what insight we gained from there. Probably the biggest thing that we learned is that we got concrete examples related to this facility services on a campus that we thought that we could do here, but then we saw concrete examples of what they've done. The different workspaces, it's kind of a rest facilities, and maybe we could implement some of these also to the student center. And there's a kind of little things that we would copy directly here, but you see this association space. These are almost all of the pictures are from the same university, same campus. And there's in one building just named Student Center. There are spaces for associations, and they had decorated the doors the way they liked. And similar associations have been grouped together. Then the printing point. And there's a lot of talk that we shall have printing possibility at the student center. So we checked those in Korea. We were there when they had a national holiday. So unfortunately, we didn't see the actual student life. But there are a lot of many different Korean dance groups dancing in the hallways. And in the lower corner, we can see more about services. Many campuses had more extensive services than we have. For example, that bank and a postal office, almost on every campus. And also this Center for Students with Disabilities, which is a very nice highlight. And also a human rights center type facilities on all campuses that focus on equality issues on campus. General about the campuses, so there are a lot of outdoor spaces that had been utilized in different ways, and we could focus more attention on that also in Otaniemi. And if you want to find out more about this, you should read AYYE's blog. Their latest post is related to Korea. And today we published the website opiskelijakeskus.fi. So you can visit the page right after the meeting. And we've brought up these ideas that were told to us at the seminar. You can also like them, go and like them. You can also add new ideas. You can browse them by category. In 2 weeks, we will go through the ideas which have gained the more likes. Then you still have 2 weeks to add more ideas there, and then we will go through all of them. And we also advertise this on the weekly newsletter and on the Facebook page. So please go there, give a like to the ideas, add your own ideas, so we can see which are people's favorites, which we should implement to the planning phase, in addition to the ones we have now. And about this facility program, we sent you an email. That is PDF, where you can find the program. I hope you had time to go through it. And if you have any things that you want to ask, I will show the different facility groups on the slides, and you can ask them. And this is a draft, a rough version, the first version of this spring's made by the working group. So you should now look this more as a tool and not as a final building. We will modify this all the time, but we want to bring it up already, even though this is not a preliminary discussion, but you can talk or ask about the issues that you want to talk about. Well, as a conclusion, I'll also say that what will happen next. But we will now have a new meeting and start the project plan, doing it and putting also numbers on paper, because we haven't really thought about the concrete expenses yet. And when you look at the big picture, compared to what we did in the project plan last year, we've reduced the number of square area by about 2,000 square meters. So we kind of condensed this plan a lot, made it more compact. I'll talk about the basic principles about this, and if you have any questions, please ask. Also ask related to that slide, which is up. But let's try to keep a steady pace, so we won't be here all night. About meeting spaces, so that there's kind of meeting center, and the different meeting rooms, and the number may be specified in later, that how many rooms we will have. But try to have an efficient solution as possible and share the facilities. And for the shared spaces, and KY has their own meeting spaces because they felt that they need them. You have any questions on this? If not, we can move forward. With office spaces, that all these parties have their own facilities to some extent. We're not sure yet about the concrete area. It will probably be reduced a bit from this. It's kind of own office spaces and other shared office spaces. So also kind of joint spaces also. And the next slide. There's a kind of there's also a break and other facilities that bathrooms would be shared in shared use, for example. About 150 squares for, if you think that one is central office, there's a lot of also empty space there. So I really thought that how to utilize this space. That's a kind of a multi-purpose office. That how do you calculate this this area, this amount of square meters? What are these AYY's need now? And how much employees we have? But most likely the workstations won't be, people will have their own, you can also share them. And you also try to have an efficient use. And there's a lot of also waste of space at the central office. So that would work more flexibly. Is the aim. We're not sure about the details yet. Could you pass the mic there? Just there's kind of a reason that why the archives are separate. Couldn't they just also be put together? I remind you that we're talking about facilities that take 38 square meters, so maybe we could leave these later. Well, maybe just on the different lines, they are not different rooms necessarily. I think this is what we need. I think also be kind of similar facilities next to each other. So I can put them. Let's move forward. This club and free time facilities, kind of a similar principle than in the office spaces. That these parties have their own needs, but common denominator would be this kind of a shared kitchen, and And this is kind of from old version. You have names of the facilities. They have been updated to the PDF and Excel. And this club room, it may be confusing as a name, so the intention is not that we will have like 5 associations that get their own spaces or facilities. It's kind of yet we had decided that what they could actually include, but they could be, for example, 2 sections and associations and committees. But the practical aspect, we're still working on that. And we also do workshops with volunteers about the facilities. So this is one of the things that will change when we move forward. And if no other questions, moving on. Restaurant and festive spaces. They're in joint use, in part, but EF and KY have that they want to build these own facilities. We haven't yet, there are not a lot of changes to the actual lunch restaurants, but I think that has changed. The biggest thing is that KY's bigger festive space, about 300 square meters, it has been removed entirely, so we will not put that into the student center. So we also have kind of a smaller 150 square meter festive space for KY. So this will also reduce the total amount of square meters. Any questions on that? Okay, then moving on to hallways and services. This is kind of the most public spaces. We also divided the hallway into different parts. That were brought up in the seminar, for example, based on that. But still, we're working on this. And the intention is that the hallways are not just kind of empty and quiet, but that they could also be like meeting places. And they could also contain different spaces that people could visit. But this doesn't mean that there probably won't be like walls that are separate rooms, but often from Kem. These are hallway and these services. Would these be kind of these joint use spaces the reason why we're moving this project forward? Yes, at least partly try to respond to the need of having a space where all members of the community and students could visit. Like people brought up also the seminar. What we try to also put here is that what could bring more people there, make them want to visit, is that they could have, for example, like a possibility to use a shower. If people, for example, don't have a shower at their use, then it could be good. For example, it would be that would be located in the student center. And also analyze that what AYYE should bring there to serve all students. This kind of seems more like an afterthought that let's just put something there. If this is just practically trying to make this more of a community, just if this is the only thing, then it's kind of weak. This is probably not the most inspiring way to bring forth highlight the facilities. For example, we thought about having a cafe in the hallway. And also kind of hangout spaces that have, for example, like a billiards table and board games, and it's not seen here, you cannot see it here, because a lot of things that cannot be told in this format. And we want to highlight that we have these different parties there. At the office there are like a meeting space, the office, and the hallway there could also be that the volunteers would spend time there, and people who want to visit the office. So I could have a hangout hallway. Yes, that sounds a lot better. And it would be good that if you could also bring these issues forth, so we don't have to be so afraid of this project future. Well, I can tell you a bit more about this later. Anyone else have any questions? Then we have KY's and TF's sauna facilities, which we have also eliminated a lot. Previously all had like their own sauna facilities and dressing rooms, but now we thought that now we also cut down on those rooms. So does it mean that AYYE will not have a sauna facility? But when you talk about using this building, are these like also possible for other parties to use that? I hope that it's not the case that only KY or TF can use their own sauna, but also AYYE could use them. Is this, like, have you given any consideration to this? That could this be like made for more like a joint use, or more communal thing? Well, there will be more specified when we move on with the planning. That how it will go, but that. Well, of course, no one has in their interest to keep their spaces empty. Of course, they will rent out them to others, but the way that we distribute the expenses will also define this, that how they will be shared, the use of these spaces. Will they rent it out or something else be done? Yes, any other questions? Moving on. So next steps. So what is next? What is going to happen next? As I said in the beginning, we're going to have a meeting, start a project plan again with Hahtola, and then we got to get a total expense estimate, and also this kind of its scope will become more detailed. And we also had decided that we'll approve at the autumn's meeting. We will decide on approving the project plan. And we just want to show you like the graphs then. Just kind of a spreadsheets, but so like more detailed that how the facilities will be, where they will be located. We brought it here today to you so that you could get like some kind of picture that what we've done during the spring. But we don't have yet any like visual material for you yet. But if everything goes smoothly, then at the second meeting of the autumn, we will have decide on the matter on approving the project plan. Also, after these decisions has been made, then we will start like the building planning. This facility program is just a tool that we will use. By the decision making, as people wished for previously at the meetings, this project has 2 decision making gateways. The first one will be in autumn. And if we only have the project plan ready, then we'll decide on approving it and moving on to the building planning. And what AYYE should take into account when making the decision is that these are, and also what the representing council should think about related to the project, is that not think about like individual spaces, but more like that, how do the different spaces function as meeting places, what kind of people they will bring together, will they create more sense of community, and do we get enough for the money that we are going to invest on this project. So in middle of summer vacation you can kind of think about this a bit with your groups. That what would be for you this kind of answers to the questions that you would approve. So any questions here? Generally related to the facility program or the student center? Apparently not. Okay, so you can also email me and Emma. For example, if you want to give your group's comments on the facility program, because you received it only 2 days ago, so you probably haven't had enough time to go through it in much detail. But if you have any comments, we'll be glad to hear them. And also visit the website opiskelijakeskus.fi. Yes, so thank you. Nothing, if no other comments, closing discussion, making the decision. The proposal was that Representing Council decide to place on record the news on the Student Center. It has been decided as thus. Closing item 8, moving to item 9. Q1, January-March 2018 financial review. The financial director is not here, unfortunately, so Nico will go through this presentation. And so Nico will probably not have answers to very detailed questions. So if you have very detailed questions, please write them down, and you can, for example, put them on the Facebook group or to Reija.
So I will be doing the financial review. So let's start up with the summary. And from the summary you can say that we are in line with the budget. You can see the 3-month numbers is approximately what they look like. That could be green as well as red. It's red there in the picture, but still. In the summary you can see that the challenges are basically in funding, so corporation and membership fees are a bit behind from our plans. So we have 3% in membership fees, means that we have kind of budgeted them a bit higher, the amount of students, but we'll see how it looks in the fall that we have when we have the new students. Also mentioned about corporate cooperation, we decided this year to take some extra oomph there, so we have 2 new sales reps and 1 corporate relations coordinator, which are doing lots of work, but as of yet we've had so much challenges in the last step, which is the actual closing the deals. So lots of stuff in the loop, so we have good opportunities still abound, and we kind of have this extra level upcoming before midsummer. Interpreter did not hear the question. Yeah, but yes, we will be able to say more on this in the fall. And general expenses, staff expenses, we are in line with the budget. No surprising things. Somebody can actually notice that we have the China cooperation. That means that we had the China flight tickets already bought, and we already had those things in line. And the next big expenses will be when the Chinese come here, and that'll be in July. In advocacy, it's nice that as last year and this year, educational policy is making money for us, and it looks like the same this year. And in general, the budget is looking very good. You also can notice that in staff costs we are a bit under the budget, and then some tasks which can be seen as in support activities, that there's some tasks we've budgeted for the entire year, but some of them might have started in February or March, which shows us kind of savings in expenses. In the community side, it's very similar to other parts, as in other years, when somebody's really scared that volunteer activities are over budgeted, but everybody who knows that when you've been a volunteer in AYYE, where you have changing people, you spend a lot of money on that, so everybody can feel really nice and everybody's kind of in the loop. So that's why the budget isn't very stable as per each and every month. But these are very common numbers. And you shouldn't be actually scared on that comparison there. I checked last year for the first 5 months, and we're kind of pretty in line. And everybody's on board with that. On the communications side, and nothing special to note. The student calendar expenses will be upcoming. You can see them partly there, but also personal costs and communications, there'll be a larger hop up when the web page costs will actuate, so we'll be seeing. Also have some increases in personal costs, which is to do with our brand work. We've placed more working hours on that, and that's why you can see a bit of excess. Yes, has it been evaluated that how much the web pages will cost us? The web pages? Well, we'll have to check the competitive tender offer that will be accepted, but if I'd say like we're living in between maybe 15,000, which is just the update, and there will be excess costs or update costs or administration costs. Actually, no, not that much. So it depends on what changes are required. Like if everything goes as planned, the update and administration should be free. I could have maybe said some facts, but yeah. The contract that we're entering with Aalto will be that administration costs will go to Aalto. The only cost we'll have, which is the front side, will spending our money in the sense that we get the experience design will ensure that the design and visual side will be nice. Continuation front is pretty expensive, so how will this cost in total? Evaluated. Nico already said that the budget will be that, including front, yes. Then we have done member services. You can see a large gap in personal costs, which has to do with our new housing secretary who started only recently. So we have kind of savings in expenses for a few months. The other services and common costs, including Domo and all other kinds of development costs, but let's hope that it'll equalize in the end. The total yearly budget is on par, but we'll have to think on the situation a bit in the future on how it will be. And rental activities, I would say that, as always, rental activities are not in the budget, but it's always very much at a loss. Looks like that, and the biggest gaps will be coming from, naturally, from Servimökki and the Rantasauna building. I think the biggest thing is that we've had more expenses and less income. No actual reasons for this or excuses, but it's just when they are going as they are, the total doesn't look good. On support functions, nothing really of note. Really, personal costs, as small saving because our real estate specialist started at the start of the year, but not from January, but something like March, April. So savings there. All right. Any questions? Also take my notes at the same time. Everything has been said. If you don't have any questions, then close discussions and decide that the proposal was that we place a student representative council with place on record the financial review. Dating 27. Closing item 9. Moving to item 10. The SUL General Assembly Regulation Update. Nico has, I think, that template that we'll look at. If you have any proposals for change, go to Facebook, where you'll find the form through which you will be able to submit them.
So, thank you. The board has made their basic proposal that I have prepared myself. You have a chance to comment on it before bringing it here. So you got comments from 2 groups. Board has taken these comments into account when making the basic proposal, and we ended up in this result. Biggest changes are that the representing council will appoint the delegation. And another significant thing is that the basic proposal, representing council received the proposal 2 weeks earlier. So with an example on Facebook that what would this mean in practice, it would mean that the board, when drafting the basic proposal for the delegation, or when they'll open the applications for the delegation, and send the kind of composition to the groups, and groups can comment on that. And then the first thing that the board will think about is the group's comments, and that representativeness is in order. And then the board will send it 2 weeks before the meeting to the groups, and so the groups have time to say that if they are satisfied with the board's proposal regarding delegation. And if it seems that they're not, then 2 weeks it's plenty of time to make changes to the composition. And then it will come here to represent council, and then to avoid having kind of votes for individual persons to the delegation, there are only that the proposal can only be accepted or brought back to preparation, to avoid discussing individual people here at the meeting. Any questions on this? Already proposals for change? I think there are a couple. If you're listening to comments, please take the microphone. I think it's somewhere in the front right. I've been informed of at least one proposal for change that has been backed and one that has not been backed. I don't know what the situation is now. Let's go with the proposal for change that have been sent through the forum, so opening discussion. Yes, some teamwork. Yes. Yes, hello. Thank you. We made a proposal for change. Also read Vihreämpi Aalto's proposal for change. And what we liked about that is that it... I speak on behalf of myself and not of my coalition. They gave more power to the European Council on the decision-making process, which I think was the point of the previous discussion we had. But I also agree with Ferm about that this kind of a negotiation method is too vague. For example, it says nothing about, because no, we appoint them according to the power relations of the groups, and it's not mentioned here. So we need a proposal for change, so could you please put it up on the screen? Well, the point is that it's mostly similar to the board's proposal, but what we want to change is that just that the groups can alone or together give a statement or comment. So we don't think that that's enough to pass on the power democratically more to the European Council, which was the point of the previous discussion. So it says that the groups want to appoint these persons. So I think it's good, this 2-week time, that we have 2 weeks to discuss, but I think this is better. Can I reply? Yes, it's worse. And because as I'm just an official here, to make sure, and my job is to make sure that all Aalto people's voice is heard, and that's why I say it's worse, because every council groups, their own incentive is to represent their own group, their own people, but the board and AYYE's office incentive is to represent all students. So if groups start appointing people, then they'll appoint their own people. And if we do this, that the groups can appoint the people directly, then we will eliminate the factor that we make sure that it's as representative as possible, this group of people from all fields. Yes, and if, for example, from some groups that they have, for example, N spots and only N people will apply, there's a certain amount of seats, and then there will only be people applying for it, the number of people. Then you need kind of like appoint or comment anything. So you can do that you can also put the same number of people that you have spots up as candidates. That way you can kind of decide it yourself. Yes, it won't be hard to stream if you don't get the mic. So, some teamwork. Yes, excellent. Yes, I agree with Rosa. That what the board proposes, I think it doesn't give enough power to the European Council. And that's why we also proposed this. But we're also happy with Kylterengas proposal. Thought about this also ourselves. We thought that it would be a better compromise, this hours between the two. And groups still don't just nominate their own people. There's, I don't know what will change if people can also back people who are not in their own group. So I don't know that now people think that this practice will change if we change this decision-making process. Well, I was just thinking a lot of kind of game theory point of view on this. And also, if you have the decision-making power, the council has it, but the board still makes the basic proposal. So, yes, kollega from Kylterengas. So in our proposal for change, it takes into account the fact that board still makes this basic proposal, which also takes into account the representativeness after the groups have nominated their candidates, and the board also has the chance to comment on the representativeness and use their own mandate seats to facilitate that. So that's why we see that our proposal is better. And what we want to make sure with the 5+5 number of spots is that this kind of we have the expertise, and we hope that when looking at the big picture, it's easier to look at the representativeness when looking at big picture. Now the request for floor, or does anyone have anything to say? Comments? If no, we have the board's proposal, and one proposal for change that is backed, and another that hasn't been backed. Yes, so the other is withdrawn, so we now have one proposal for change that has been backed, and we will vote on it. So does everyone have their voting slips? Yes, please hand out the slips to the entire crowd. So I'm just representing myself here. So I'm kind of slow now, so could I get like, for example, about 10 people, that's an easy number, to see that what this proposal for change would actually do, like in practice. Tell what is the difference between the board proposal and this proposal. So you have the numbers there. So if you have like 8 seats now here, how would they be divided? If you have 8 seats, and let's go according to the coalition, and we're looking at the regular seats, not the vice members. Rangas will have 4, Rangas will have 2.7, Aalto will have 0.5, and 0.36, and ProArte will have 0.36 spots. So if we think that, presume that there are also candidates from all, then ProArte will have 1 seat. Jämärä Ratas, if rounding down, they will have 4. Kyltäri-Rangas, rounding down, they have 2 spots, and then there will be 1 spot left between Oikea Aalto and Vihreämpi Aalto. Of course, there's also the same amount of deputy people. But if you do it in relation, then it means that Kyltäri-Rangas will have the 3rd spot, because their number of people, it's the highest after this division. Just but the point is to have the most people represented. This is not set in stone, but this is how usually it has been done. I think that's a good example, that if you have, for example, 4 and 3, and the 1 will be divided between the 3, it will lead to a situation where we have already ensured that Tekkari and Kyltäri has enough spots, but not art students. For example, then Oikea Aalto and Vihreämpi Aalto could make an alliance and secure at least 1 political spot, which would mean that arts students would not be represented. But you have to use the coalitions to calculate this when looking at the alliances. If we're going to Skisma, Valtti and Aalto separately, then the way it would go is that Vihreämpi, Oikea and ProArte would get 1 seat, KY would get 4, Skisma 2, and others get 1. It's like 14. But then you have to take into account the boards 5 plus 5. Yes, it's a 14 in total. 14 or 13. But there's a guy to get nominated directly. But those board tasks to take care of the representativeness, but then at the same time it's given also as task to the representative council, and that the representative council isn't representative enough. Well, the kind of a ratio of people here is not the best possible, but still it needs to be able to be representative enough without leaving the gate open for the board. In the previous discussions we talked that how representative councils should be sufficiently representative to make decisions, and now we're saying that it's not representative enough. That's kind of an interesting argumentation, that it depends on the situation. Well, there are different things to consider, where representative council is always representative, but if you want to represent all fields of study, then we can give a stronger emphasis at even giving this kind of a small delegation in the SOL to make sure that, because there's a smaller amount of people there than here, because here we have all fields represented. Any request to floor? I don't know how it was divided, these seats. And there's a proposal for change. It would make sure that the representing council groups could take a stand on the seats, because in the board's proposal it gives the chance for the one seat to be divided arbitrarily as the board wants. And for example, for Kylteri, this Kylteri's seat will be like disregarded, although their number of representatives is the highest. And then if the representing council groups could comment themselves that how to make it as representative as possible, this delegation, then Kylterirengas is also kind of a coalition from different groups. And applies for the positions together. But with this, with 8 seats, it would go as thus that Jämeenratas will have 4 seats, Kylterirengas will have 3, and then I don't know where the last seat will be handed out to. Then it will be Oikeampi Aalto, Vihreämpi Aalto, and Pro Arte will be tied. And as a given example, we give a different example also, but the one I used is that but communities always be taken into account in the representativeness. But if you also want to take into account like a political stance, then we're going to be different political representativeness. But we think that this wide representative council's will be evident in the best possible way, and I hope you vote accordingly. Yes, representative council's representativeness, but Nico also meant the representativeness of different fields, or kind of a representatives of all Aalto students, because the board's task is to make the most representative group possible with the most expertise as possible. Board has no other own interests. And that is why I don't see it myself that why. Because the board also listens to the representing council groups, one thing about the representativeness and expertise, and then drafts the composition for the delegation. Then I don't know, because Kylterirengas has every year they have received seats, even more seats than they should have every year. So I'd like to give a thumbs up to the board's, basically to the board's proposal, because I think this is very kind of a very unnecessary. Just kind of a handed this matter when just talking about one seat in the end. Yes, also from Pro Arte. I propose, I also support the previous comment, because I trust that the AYYE's board will do their job accordingly. Think what is the best way to represent all Aalto people, because that's their job. So I don't kind of see the need for all representative council groups just to kind of drive their own agenda more, because I trust that AYYE can also see the big picture and make the right decision. Across from Valtti, I agree, and also one seat really matters also, that we get at least all the fields from Aalto. Yes, last request for floor, then moving on to voting. No other requests. So we now have the boards. Basic proposal, then we have the proposal for change. And here please vote counters come forth. And you'll have your slips, I presume. Do you have slips yourselves? You also get to vote. I told you to do it, but you didn't, so... Then what will do next is that board's proposal, the basic proposal, which is yes, it will be blue, and red will be the proposal for change. So first, everyone has their slips. Yes. And now blue slips for the basic proposal of the board. Yes, already. Then Kulikov and Gregov's proposal for change. Red slips up now. Then please lower slips and then empty votes the white slips. What was the result? 24 for basic proposal, 13 for proposal for change. So I think the majority is for the basic proposal. Does anyone else have a ballot vote? I hope not, but of course you will get it if you want. But we still have this proposal for change. Do you want to keep it or do you want to withdraw it? If you don't, then we will have a closed ballot vote. Yes, we'll withdraw it. If no other request for floor, closing discussion, we're going to make the decision. Proposal was the European Council decided to update the regulation in question in accordance with Appendix 10. This has been decided. Next up, we have item 11, preliminary discussion on the update of the direction of the student union. Do you want to have a small break before that? Yes, I have a 5-minute bathroom break. So please come back here. Say that at 7 p.m.
The meeting break has ended. Let's continue the meeting, and there was a wish that was expressed that even when you're talking into the microphone, please turn and speak so that actually people in the hall can hear you. It's actually enough that just stand up so you're not speaking into somebody's neck. So that should be it. Item 11, preliminary discussion on the update of the direction of the student union. So the issue should be so that I'll start and put some facts on the table. That's from the same memo you were sent a month ago, after which I'll have a tripartite discussion. If you've read the memo, well, there's actually nothing new here today. But, so what are we doing? We are updating a part of our strategy, meaning the direction of the student union. Is a second document in addition to the real estate strategy. These two documents combine to actually direct our priorities based on legislation. And last year we also made some brand work, and the brand has to do with the strategy in the sense that in the brand we talk about the values promise that AYYE has made, how our activities should look like and feel like. And when we are making this action plan strategy, then the brand would discuss along with the process with the document. Of course, if we have kind of this will in the brand that we want to create a feeling of some sort, it should actually be visible in the prioritization of our actions. And actually to correspond with the promise we've made in the other documents on the part of the history. We had the strategy 2013 to 2017 was our first strategy, and we were drafting this in 2012. We made very, very thorough work. We placed very many work hours into work groups, took a lot of parties into account, but we had this problem that when 2 years out of 5 had passed, and we kind of forgot about this document. It really didn't direct activities after that. In 2016, we had the renewal and update. We had the cycling because we actually realized that the strategy is no longer kind of directing our activities, and we have to use a lot of time for the action plan each year, and we kind of had to invent the wheel again each year with what our priorities are. 2016, we decided on the current model where we have the strategy based on the real estate strategy and the DSU document. These two documents are decided to be left separate so they can be updated at different intervals. And I'd say that the real estate activities is something like we need a 10-year plan for development of real estate, and living services we placed on 5 years because it needs kind of a bit more time than just the 2 years that has been placed on the DSU, the direction of the student union document. And why we ended on 2 years, because we said that it's long enough. It keeps kind of we kind of can plan things on the long term, but it's not too long, so it's short enough to be relevant. So each and every representative council can actually be involved in the document. And of course, when it's being updated, the student union's activities are not changing that rapidly in 2 years that it'll be totally out of date in just 24 months. And that the current operators wouldn't see it as prudent. This is our current document, which is going out of date this year, and this is why this year we are being updated. We have 2 development goals, which are AYYE as a builder of Aalto spirit and the AYYE as a societal influencer. And then to the requirements of the update, we have the whole part 3 of the memo is that why are actually the main goals we have for the update. We have good grounds and also actual need to continue with our two goals. We need kind of more clarification and update on the goals. And one point was that we made in the branding work is we had this kind of phrase called Aalto is forever, Aalto spirit is forever, and we talk about alumni activities, but we actually can't see it in the goal. Should we actually lift the goal pertaining to alumni activities into the DSU? Then also kind of a clarification part. Since we have changing operators, and we have people who take different sorts of interpretations from the same documents, we should always remember that we try to make them as clear and concise as possible in order for the people who, when we change people in charge, they kind of take the same interpretations. The third part would be that during the update it would be awesome if we could get some measures into the DSU. It would ease the previous problem of differentiating interpretations. If we have kind of measures and measurements and meters, it helps with actually the interpretation. And it also would be really nice if you could tell that how implementing this strategy is actually progressing. Measures would be good for that. Here is the updating process. So we have a questionnaire to the groups, which you should have all answered in your groups. Now we have the preliminary discussion, and based on this we will start building the first draft of the updated DSU. And the first proposal would be taken to the committees at the end of August, and the committees based on which will prepare a second draft, and that will be taken to preliminary discussion here, and if we still need changes, they'll be done after that stage. And then we have the decision making upcoming in October this year. And the important part about this process is that we should finish this by the end of November. When we are talking about the 2019 action plan, we'd actually have the DSU that could define our biggest themes. Any questions about this presentation? Shall we talk and start the discussion proper? Awesome. So, AYYE as a societal influencer, a wielder of influence in society, what should the office take into note when we start the update process? So, that when we did this for the first time, the people can actually remember that we had this original boards template at 5. We had and Aalto would actually support that we could take the 5th port there, because it was removed by a margin of only 1 vote, and it was in the template. So AYYE would act as a torchbearer in questions pertaining to the environment. We'd actually wish that we could take this back. We don't really see that any requirements to remove these, maybe clarify them a bit, but these directions are pretty good, but we feel that there would be space for this new goal. I think that this lowest goal isn't something that actually AYYE should resource a lot to achieve. For example, well, first of all, political activities that AYYE do are still, well, not necessarily that relevant for all members, because we're still forced membership, but maybe if that's removed, things will change. But we will gain information about different issues, but we don't actually need communication from all societal things, only those important ones. We were discussing also the fourth part where we're in Luova, and we had two different interpretations of it. So the first one is that AYYE would send messages on how AYYE itself advocates in society, and the other interpretation was that AYYE would give communications on how members can advocate. And we think that both of these points should be brought forth, which would require maybe a longer sentence or two goals. Thank you. Any other requests for the floor? Mr. Rosa? Yes, I actually automatically understand this with the former, actually not the latter one. Yes, stay up. I understand this is the latter, man. I'm too tall. Sorry, so I automatically interpret this. We're not talking about like how AYYE advocates. We're talking about how... Actually, I think this in the background memo, it would say that what kind of means and ways students could actually have in participating in societal discussions. I think that's good. Are you referring to the DSU memo? Yes. Can I have a quick comment? As a continuation that we wish to remove different kinds of misunderstanding possibilities. That's what has to do with that. We're kind of wishing for a new word form. Any other comments? Be bold. If not, shall we continue? I'll also ask regarding this that from the chairperson's meeting we discussed the fact that AYYE as a student union of art and arts. Does the hall have any musings on that? Should it be visible in these goals? Will I leave it there? That this doesn't bring forth the fact that AYYE actually supports arts and culture and developing arts and culture, so it could be actually included there if we can get the word form right. So TOPS are going to continue moving, and then we have an AYYE as a builder of the Aalto spirit. Same question, what should we take into account when updating? And on this part we discussed, and we would like to add a part on the campus now that everybody will be moving here in Otaniemi, as some sort of goal on the fact that this Otaniemi campus would be for all Aalto students kind of a home place and kind of a meeting spot. It should be reinforced, this view. Be bold if you have any comments. Someone almost had a hand. So move the microphone. I was thinking of, like we discussed in our meeting, that taking alumni into account would be actually very useful, because we have this Aalto spirit is forever. If we discussed this before, I'm sorry, but we are doing lots of branding work, like Aalto spirit is forever. So in that sense, it could be kind of included in these DSU documents, and we should enforce alumni activities even more than before. I support the first speaker. If nothing else, let's continue. So then general discussion. Do we have anything about the process? Something that wasn't said? Something about the preparatory work? And regarding this arts student union, after kind of a short discussion, we can comment on the pro arte side that we kind of have this fear that we've sort of make some sort of phrase there, just toss it out there, that it would be a bit empty in meaning. So we think that we shouldn't put it into the policy papers just yet. But within AYY's sphere of influence, we should actually spark conversation on what do we feel about arts and how is it visible in our culture. And in these policy papers, we could maybe get some sort of policies there and how it could be tied into these. Okay, so thank you. Voltti. Another point of view is that if we say that Aalto University Student Union is a student union with the arts, like it's kind of a thing that we can develop. We don't have to say that we are not something when we are something. We should actually say something and strive towards it, and where we want to end up in. Anything else you wish, like in terms of continuation, preparatory work? And also in line, I think that we could actually mark up somehow that we are creating a student culture which is very new, which is the first student union in Finland, which is kind of a combination of several universities, kind of so maybe it should be mentioned that instead of just trying to mash up the three universities into one thing and these new old cultures, which are of course valuable and existing, but we should create an atmosphere where these cultures are respected and known, but also we could have some sort of common Aalto culture, which is kind of from an anthropological side. It's more sustainable in the long run. Just that just trying to make all of these cultures which are existing, trying to make it common for everyone. I had a question regarding the measures and the meters. What kind of meters are we talking about? So if you have any ideas, that we've received kind of a member survey which would ask on how Aalto you feel that you're, how much of an Aalto person do you feel you are, and we had the memo. It had this kind of a bad, very unscientific meter, which would be this Aino magazine questionnaire that how Aalto do you feel, I don't know, 0 to 10. This kind of the same idea, but maybe with more professional style execution. And we've also discussed on the services side that we'd make some sort of service questionnaire. Maybe with that we could, in addition to that, ask about how do you feel that AYY's societal influence is developed. Any other requests for the floor? Like maybe this, in the influencing part, that we could have a measure, a meter that AYY in general societal influencer, like when we are talking about, for example, we have the talking about student humor, we have the julkperson and the SYL chairperson, so we could actually compete with who on the fact that who is actually being involved when we talk about student activities and measure the ways on which how is AYY seen in society. Like Aine people, like they laugh at the AYY's comments because they don't think they're credible. So how to actually involve and better our credibility in this sense, like this would be something. A question like how do you say that you said that Julkus people are unprofessional? Like, of course, there's not AYY's chairperson talking about student culture, but there's another student union's chairperson talking about the Julku people, what is student culture. Like, this was a kind of a morning TV show, I think, on our studio. And if we'd also talk like how influencing we are societally, we should actually talk with our stakeholder groups. Any other comments? Then move onward then. Then we kind of had the closing arguments. Thank you for the discussion. Let's continue with the committees when we have the first draft up and coming for grabs. Kind of actually, sorry that I have to be very strict with the microphone. It's very important that we actually can hear the comments and we don't have to look at the transcript for the comments. I'd like to also bring forth a kind of an innovation that I saw a few weeks ago. It's kind of a throwable microphone. And that would be nice for OBS, would it be nice? We tried that a few meetings ago. Yeah, about a year ago we had that. It's good as much that everybody doesn't have anything that can actually fall down, or a laptop. If everybody gets rid of their laptops, then we can use that. Okay, closing discussions and move to decide. The proposal was that the representative council decided to place on record the preliminary discussion on the subject. Decided. Closing item 11, moving on to item 12, other business, other emerging matters actually. I think for the list I received on Monday kind of an opening regarding on the representative council elections. Any other emerging matters? Microphone. Move. Now that we're here, I would like to actually focus on the point on the work that if the board and the chairpersons want to actually develop the speed and efficiency of decision making, can we actually get these sets that are actually being discussed in the meetings? Could we actually get them in sensible times before the meeting? Because currently we have missing information, missing documents, and we maybe have these documents. And without that, it's hard to actually do things and actually decide things. Personally, I've actually said that we get them at when they're done and when they're translated. Nobody actually sits on them. So usually we had many situations when we had the board, we had situations where we had a very important meeting, or we haven't had the time to discuss these. That, of course, we try to make these as fast as possible. I think we had the memo that was sent a month ago, so it goes both ways in this sense. Like we had this in meetings, the Q1, it's not available still, even though it's been undertaken in a meeting and looked at. That is not kind of a single event. It happens with every meeting, that there's material, that there's some party has them, some party doesn't, but they're still not being presented to the representative council. And this is kind of a development target we actually need to discuss, like through committees. We can make like we have this discussion time. Maybe the committees could discuss it, like if you want these drafts, it's possibly doable, but we want to actually get the final versions. So we can have like, we want to avoid the situation where we have several different versions that differentiate from each other. Okay, like we print this student center some version, and then you commented that, well, you could actually think of more in more detail. We do our best. But decision issues are something that we have regulations for them, and they must be sent a week prior. And in news and latest news, we actually get that a bit later. And what we want to focus on, if you want the news to actually get them 1 week prior, but we can do that. But half of the people have already heard these things. Maybe 1 day before. Let's not talk semantics. Would it be 1 day, 2 days, 5 days? Everybody agrees that as soon as possible is the best. Get the best materials possible. Any other emerging matters? So no. I'll just close discussions and closing item 12 and moving on to item 13, closing the meeting. It's 19:26 and I close the meeting.